Hey everyone, before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below with where you're watching from and what time is right now. Seriously, it's always wild seeing who's tuning in. And if you love strange slices of forgotten history, hit that like button. It helps more than you think. Alright, tonight we're climbing into a pastel time machine, cranking up the Perry Como, and heading straight to the world of 1950s housewives. Those legendary women who could polish a floor, wrangle a toddler, bake a three-layer Jell-O salad, and still make dinner look like a Norman Rockwell painting. But here's the twist. Beneath every perfect bouffant and floral apron was a secret weapon stronger than Tupperware: amphetamines. Yes, we're talking about why 1950s housewives were all quite literally running on speed. So grab a cozy blanket, dim the lights, and imagine life in a world where coffee just wasn't enough to survive suburbia. Your alarm clock is the sound of a child demanding pancakes, and a husband wondering aloud why his shirts aren't ironed by thought alone. Let's set the scene. It's 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. The air is already humming with a mixture of percolating coffee and suppressed anxiety. You're cocooned under a quilt surrounded by the soft pastel tones of wallpaper that looks like it was designed by someone in a fever dream about tulips. Somewhere in the house, a radio whispers the news, a little Cold War tension, a little weather, and a whole lot of advertisements for labor-saving devices that will never ever actually save you any labor. You like to sleep in just once, but sleeping in is for people in magazines or possibly Soviet agents. Your to-do list is taped to the fridge and reads like a military campaign. Make breakfast, pack lunches, get kids dressed, iron shirts, vacuum, polish silver, shop for groceries, call the neighbor back about the Tupperware party. All this before 9 a.m. Because if your day doesn't start with at least 3 simultaneous crises, are you really a 1950s housewife? But you have a secret weapon. In your nightstand drawer, tucked between a handkerchief and a copy of Better Homes and Gardens, is a small bottle of magic amphetamines, prescribed by the family doctor who thinks you look a little tired but never actually asks why. The bottle promises pep and energy. But what it really means is you'll soon be able to clean a bathroom with the force of a tropical storm. You pop a pill with your first glass of orange juice, fresh squeezed, of course, because the grocery store only sells frozen concentrate to communists. Now the gears begin to turn. Your brain sharpens. Your body wakes up, and suddenly you're moving like someone in a detergent commercial. The house isn't going to tidy itself. And let's be honest, if it did, you just have to find something else to perfect. The children emerge, rumpled and grumpy, and you're already 2 steps ahead. Breakfast is on the stove, lunches are in progress, and the dog's been walked, brushed, and possibly alphabetized. It's important to remember that you're not alone. Somewhere in every house on your block, there's another woman in a robe and slippers, staring at her own reflection and wondering if she's got what it takes to survive another day. The difference between you and her? Probably just a few milligs of synthetic enthusiasm dispensed in a mint green pharmacy bottle. Your husband, groggy and blissfully unaware of the chemical ballet happening in his own home, shuffles into the kitchen. He expects eggs, not scrambled, not fried, but somehow both. The toast must be hot, the coffee strong. The newspaper unfolded to the sports section, and not a hair out of place on your carefully coiffed head. He comments without malice, but with infinite ignorance that you seem awfully chipper this morning. You smile through clenched teeth. It's either that or admit that you're running on a combination of adrenaline, caffeine, and enough legal amphetamines to power a minor league baseball team. Outside, the world is waking up, but you're already halfway done with your morning. There's no such thing as me time unless you count the 3.5 minutes locked in the bathroom, pretending to pluck your eyebrows while actually trying not to scream. Sometimes you daydream about running away. Maybe to Paris. Maybe just to the other side of the block where nobody knows you're the one who accidentally burned the neighbor's Jell-O mold at last week's potluck. And still you keep going, because in the 1950s the stakes are high. Spotless homes, well-fed children, husbands who leave for work looking like they've just been pressed at the dry cleaner. If you slip up, if you're late, if you miss a single dust bunny under the couch, the universe will collapse. Or at least that's how it feels. The local gossip network, powered by rotary phones and nerves, will know before lunch. But the pills do their job. You glide through the morning with a smile, a whirlwind of activity, making domestic chaos look like ballet. And as you wipe the last crumb from the kitchen table, you realize it's only 8:30 a.m., and there's still the rest of the day to survive. Congratulations, you made it through the 6 a.m. jolt again. Only 14 more hours to go. It's breakfast time. Eggs, bacon, a smiling child, a grumpy spouse, and oh yes, one little white pill chased with sancor and a side of existential dread. Was this in the cookbook? Maybe not, but it's on the menu every morning. Let's set the table. You shuffle into the kitchen, hair still pinned in last night's curlers, robe tied with a vengeance, slippers slapping across the linoleum. The radio is already blaring out the top hits of 1957. Something cheerful, upbeat, and impossible to dance to before sunrise. The kitchen clock says 6:12 a.m., but your brain says maybe tomorrow. You glance at the counter. Eggs, bacon, Wonder Bread, margarine, a can of grapefruit halves and heavy syrup, and the family-sized bottle of vitamin Pep, courtesy of Dr. Michaels and his very friendly prescription pad. The ritual begins. You brew the coffee, 2 scoops for him, 1 for you, and a dash of wishful thinking. While the percolator bubbles, you set the table, plates, forks, glasses, and the special good morning napkins you embroidered last winter in a fit of performative domesticity. In the background, the children stir, arguing over which cereal mascot is superior and whether today's school lunch will be edible or existential. You pop a piece of bacon into your mouth, realize you've forgotten to defrost the orange juice, and decide that grapefruit halves are nature's punishment for not planning ahead. But before the day can truly begin, you reach into your little kitchen drawer, tucked between the pot holders and a broken can opener, and retrieve the real breakfast of champions, a single benzidine tablet. It looks innocent, just a tiny white pill. But this is the not-so-secret ingredient in every successful 1950s morning. Coffee is good. Bacon is better. But benzedrine is what separates the domestic gladiators from the merely mortal. You pop it, chase it with lukewarm sancor, and brace yourself for the coming storm. Suddenly, breakfast becomes a performance. You flip pancakes with the grace of a Vegas magician, eggs sizzling like applause. The bacon practically cooks itself. The toast leaps out of the toaster, and your hands move so quickly, you'd swear you've unlocked a new level of kitchen speedrun. You play everything just so. Bacon curled beside a perfect fried egg. Pancakes stacked like architectural marvels. Syrup cascading in slow motion for a brief, shining moment. You are the undisputed queen of the breakfast table. The family arrives. Your husband in a pressed shirt and yesterday's tie demands something hearty and proceeds to read the sports page aloud as if you've never heard of baseball. The children appear, hair pointing in all directions, debating which of them can eat the most pancakes before school. You keep the mood light, make a joke about rocket fuel, and ignore the creeping sense that you're about 3 pancakes away from total meltdown. But here's the thing about benzedrine. It doesn't just pep you up. It turns breakfast into a sort of existential Olympics. You're not just cooking. You're multitasking at a level that borders on the supernatural. While you scramble eggs, you're mentally drafting the grocery list, counting laundry loads, and rehearsing your explanation for why the school fundraiser envelope still isn't signed. The energy is relentless, electric, slightly jittery, and tinged with a faint sense that you could either organize a sock drawer or launch a satellite. Of course, the commercials promised this would be the best part of your day. Mother looks her best when she feels her best, usually right before she reorganizes the entire kitchen at 7 a.m. Modern life means efficiency, And nothing says efficient like inhaling a 3-course breakfast while discussing the finer points of atomic safety drills with a 6-year-old. Your husband, blissfully unaware of your chemically enhanced powers, kisses you on the cheek, thanks you for another wonderful meal, and heads out the door with a briefcase full of paperwork and zero existential dread. The kids grab their lunches. You grab a second cup of Sanker, and you stand in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by crumbs and triumph, heart racing, mind buzzing. Breakfast is over. You survived. You're fueled, fed, and if you're honest, just a little bit terrified of what you could accomplish before lunch. Welcome to the 1950s, where every day starts with coffee, bacon, and Benzedrine. The real breakfast of champions. There's a manual for everything except surviving the sheer pressure of keeping a house so clean your mother-in-law weeps. Magazines promise perfection. Neighbors compete with lawns, and your sanity is holding on by a single trembling thread. Let's talk about perfection. In 1950 suburbia, perfection isn't a goal. It's a mandate, a religion, a competitive sport with no finish line and a new set of hurdles every morning. The glossy pages of ladies' home journals say you should be slim, cheerful, and ready with a witty remark before breakfast. Your kitchen must gleam. Your children must sparkle. And your marriage must look effortless. Even when your spouse spends all evening talking to his ham radio, and you're fairly certain the neighbor's roses are fake, the pressure starts before you even get out of bed. You lie there staring at the ceiling, planning your day down to the minute. Vacuum at 7:15. Call the school at 8:05. Make sure to have lipstick on by 8:30. In case the milkman is running early and needs to witness your natural beauty, there's no margin for error. A missed spot of dust is a moral failing, a crooked curtain, a sign of weak character. Why? If the president himself stopped by for tea, you'd better be ready to whip up a bundt cake and a foreign policy opinion on short notice. Of course, you aren't just competing with yourself. The true opponents are all around you. The neighbors, each one striving for the cleanest windows, the greenest grass, the most symmetrical hedges. Mrs. Henderson across the street puts out her trash in matching pastel cans. The Petersons have a mailbox, so shiny it might double as a small aircraft beacon. Every child in the neighborhood is an honor student, a Cub Scout, or a tap dancing prodigy. Their mothers, Olympic-level coaches in the art of keeping up appearances. And just when you think you're catching up, the magazines move the finish line. One month, it's all about crochet doilies and apple pie. Next month, it's Danish modern furniture and casseroles involving 10 kinds of cheese. You're supposed to redecorate the living room, invent a family tradition, and look 3 thinner, all before your husband comes home and notices the new lamp is actually just the old lamp with a bow on it. It doesn't help that perfection is not just visible. It's expected to be effortless. There are rules about how much effort you're supposed to show. If you look too frazzled, people will talk. If you look too relaxed, people will talk even more. Why? I just don't know how you do it all, dear. Is both a compliment and a subtle accusation, like a gentle pat on the back from someone holding a report card. Behind closed doors, you are constantly calculating the optics of your own life. Is your apron too wrinkled? Is your child's hair too wild? Will the bridge club notice the chipped teacup or the existential dread? At any moment, someone might drop by. An event that strikes terror into the heart of even the bravest housewife. You wipe a single bead of sweat from your brow, straighten the magazines, and wonder for the 5th time this week whether normal people really keep their living rooms this tidy, or if they too have a junk drawer filled with things that make a suspicious rattling sound. And then there's your mother-in-law. She arrives, purse clutched, eyes scanning the baseboards for weakness, searching for a sign you're not up to snuff. She doesn't need to say anything. Her silence is withering enough. You hand her a slice of cake and pray she finds it moist. It's not approval you seek. It's survival. Still, you persevere. Because the unwritten rules of 1950 suburbia say that if you can't be perfect, you can at least look like you're trying. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You smooth your skirt, take a deep breath, and remind yourself the domestic Olympics never really end. But at least you've made it through another round with style and possibly a little bit of speed. You'd think mopping was a competitive sport. You in a house coat and curlers scrubbing like you're about to win gold. The secret weapon, amphetamines. Suddenly dusting feels like a mission, not a punishment. The kitchen clock ticks louder than it should. Each minute a reminder that time is not your friend. It's 8 a.m., which means you're already late by the standards of a 1950s housewife. At least the children have barely left for school. Your husband is halfway to the office, and you're eyeing the living room with the intense focus of someone about to storm Normandy. There's a spot on the coffee table. Is it a fingerprint or an existential threat? Either way, it's got to go. You crank up the radio, something upbeat, like Perry Como or Doris Day, because you read somewhere that music helps productivity. But honestly, it's the pills that are doing the heavy lifting. The familiar energy begins to hum through your veins. You've already downed a cup of coffee or two, but now your hands are moving at twice the normal speed. Your mind skipping ahead to every chore, every corner, every secret crumb lurking beneath the fridge. Let's start with a vacuum. Modern marvel, symbol of American progress, and approximately the weight of a small anvil. You drag it from the closet, plug it in, and get to work. Zigzagging across the carpet with military precision. You dare a single dust bunny to survive. You hit every corner, every skirting board. And when the cord inevitably tangles around your ankle, you don't curse. You just keep moving because you're a woman on a mission and the Hoover has met its match. From vacuum to mop, from mop to duster. There's a rhythm to this now, almost like a dance. The kitchen floor shines. The sink sparkles. The Formica counter gleams in the morning sun. Each reflection a little victory. You switch to the bathroom, scrubbing the tub with a ferocity that would frighten professional wrestlers. You organize the medicine cabinet, arrange the towels, wipe down the mirror, and pause only to question why toothpaste never stays in the tube. Cleaning the 1950s isn't just about tidiness. It's about self-worth. The house is a reflection of you, your marriage, your standing in the neighborhood. A smudge on the window is a mark on your character. A streak on the silver is a moral failing. You wipe, polish, buff, and scrub. Because deep down you know the local gossip machine is powered by women who notice things like the ring in your bathtub or the slight dusting of pollen on your windowsill. You cannot give them ammunition. Occasionally, your brain goes rogue, inventing new cleaning tasks just to keep the adrenaline flowing. Why not reorganize the linen closet by color? You think, as you stack towels with the focus of a librarian arranging rare manuscripts. You check the calendar. Remember you promised cookies for the bake sale. And then clean out the fridge just for the satisfaction of banishing a wilted lettuce and 3 jars of mystery jam. There's no time to question your own logic. On speed, even the most tedious jobs are suddenly urgent, almost exhilarating. You find yourself on your hands and knees, toothbrush in hand, scrubbing grout as if the fate of the nation depended on your kitchen floor's whiteness. The phone rings. You answer it with a breezy good morning while secretly calculating how long it will take to dust the baseboards before lunch. The cleaning never truly ends. But for a brief, shining moment, you stand in your living room, take in the gleam, and let yourself feel a flicker of pride. You did it again. The house sparkles. The air smells of lemon and soap, and your heart beats like a parade drum. All before noon, you are for this moment the undisputed champion of domesticity, the gold medalist of the morning cleaning frenzy, and tomorrow you'll do it all over again. Every housewife is an entrepreneur now, pushing burpable plastic with the fervor of a Silicon Valley startup. If you've ever attended a party that felt suspiciously like a hostage situation, just add amphetamines for extra sparkle. It all starts with a cheery phone call from a neighbor. Let's call her Barbara, who just wants to invite you to a little get-together. You know what's coming. There's never just coffee and conversation. No, this is the front line of domestic capitalism. The Tupperware Party. It's 1957, and the suburbs are practically vibrating with the sound of women hustling molded plastic. You're not just expected to attend, you're expected to buy. And if you're unlucky, host the next one. Preparation begins days in advance. You clean the house like it's being inspected by the Queen of England, then spend hours debating which dress is festive but approachable. There's a mounting sense of competition whose deviled eggs will look the fluffiest, whose jello mold will actually set, and whose doilies are the most aggressively starched. You assemble trays of snacks, cheese cubes, olives, and a suspiciously ambitious tuna casserole. While rehearsing lines in the mirror, you're not selling Tupperware. You're selling a lifestyle, freshness, order, and a future without spoiled leftovers. By the time Barbara arrives, you're already amped, thanks in no small part to a little white pill tucked discreetly in your purse. The other women file in, each one eyeing the living room as if they're casing the place for a feature in Better Homes and Gardens. Barbara, of course, is prepared. She's brought an arsenal. Nested bowls, pastel cups, burpable lids, and that weird orange squeezer no one really knows how to use. She starts her presentation with a dazzling smile and a voice like a television announcer. You can feel the amphetamines working. They've turned your polite attention into a laser focus on the miraculous world of airtight storage. Just listen to this, Barbara says, snapping a lid onto a container with a satisfying pop. The room oohs and ahs as if she's just revealed the cure for polio. She explains the science of freshness with a straight face, describing how Tupperware will revolutionize your leftovers, save your marriage, and possibly end world hunger. You're handed a cup of weak punch and a catalog thicker than a phone book. There's a palpable sense of obligation, the subtle peer pressure of the suburban arms race. If Barbara's hosting today, you know Janet and Ruth are next, and you'd better buy something or risk exile from the church bake sale. The real show, though, is the sales pitch. Barbara is relentless, shifting from jokes to testimonials to hands-on demonstrations. She asks pointedly, "Wouldn't you like to keep your lettuce crisp for days? You nod even though lettuce has never survived more than 12 hours in your fridge." The women begin to one-up each other. "Well, I keep my flour in Tupperware and my cakes have never been moistister. I use the tall container for spaghetti. My dog food stays fresh for weeks." It's less a conversation and more a chorus of product evangelism. You wonder if anyone has ever actually used a celery keeper, or if it's just suburban folklore. Soon enough, the order forms come out. You panic. How many pastel tumblers is too many? Is it go to buy 2 sets of measuring cups? You sign your name with trembling hands, resolving to host the next party just so you can pass the burden along. That's the secret at the heart of the Tupperware Party. It's not about the plastic. It's about the endless cycle. One party feeds another and another until every kitchen drawer in the neighborhood is stuffed to bursting. As everyone packs up, you share knowing glances and polite goodbyes. Another round of the Tupperware arms race is over, and you've survived with new lids, less money, and the certain knowledge that in suburbia freshness is mandatory, and the hustle never really ends. Suburbia is a fishbowl. You know who's on diet pills, who prefers the pink ones, and who swears her pharmacist is her therapist. Everyone's smiling. No one's sleeping. Let's step outside for a moment. The air is thick with the scent of fresh cut grass. And if you listen carefully, you can almost hear the hum of secrets buzzing between the clotheslines. In the 1950s, nothing travels faster than a rumor, except perhaps a housewife who's double-dosed her morning pep pills and just remembered she left the iron on. Neighborhoods are tight-knit, tidy, and absolutely electric with a constant, unspoken competition for perfection. But beneath the carefully clipped hedges and matching station wagons is a world of whispered stories and covert glances. The daily parade begins early. You wave at your neighbor, Ruth, who's already hosing down her driveway for the second time before 9 Ruth claims she's just naturally energetic, but everyone knows she's on the yellow ones. Down the block, Janet jogs past in full makeup, purse swinging like a metronome, stopping only to adjust her headscarf and chat with the mailman for the third time this week. The truth is, nobody's fooling anyone. Everyone is tired. Everyone has nerves. And everyone has a friendly doctor willing to prescribe something just to help out. It's an open secret. You can spot the subtle cues. The woman whose windows are always streak-free. The one who alphabetizes her soup cans. The one who never seems to blink. You wonder what color her pills are. At the PDA meeting, the conversation is bright, fast, and occasionally derails into wild tangents about laundry, school lunches, or the superiority of vacuum cleaner attachments. Meanwhile, in the back row, someone is discreetly comparing pharmacy recommendations. Dr. Lawson is good for the blue ones, but Dr. Mills gives you the real strong stuff. Just don't mention the night sweats. Of course, gossip isn't just about pills. It's about everything. Who lets their kids run wild? Who's behind on the mortgage? Who burnt the casserole at the church potluck and try to pass it off as Swedish? But lately, it all circles back to energy. Who has it? Who fakes it? And who's barely holding it together behind those thick framed glasses? There's camaraderie in the competition. Everyone is striving for the same impossible standard. And the gossip is a way to both judge and connect. If you know what someone's taking, you know how to measure your own efforts. Oh, she's on the green ones. That explains the hedges. Double as social hubs. There's a certain choreography to picking up your prescription. Standing in line behind your neighbor, pretending to read the greeting cards while you sneak glances at her bag. The pharmacist knows everyone's secrets, dispensing pills and platitudes in equal measure. How's the garden, Mrs. Wilson? Still up all night weeding? Yes, thank you. I just can't seem to slow down. You both know exactly why. The gossip, of course, never rests. It travels by phone. Those long spiral cords stretching around corners as women share updates in hushed tones. It's a chain of confession, comfort, and subtle one-upmanship. Did you hear about Helen? Switched to the new brand. Says she hasn't slept since Tuesday. You laugh, but inside you're calculating whether your own stash will get you through the week. There's reassurance in the shared absurdity. Everyone's pretending, and everyone's in on the joke. Still, there's a darker side. Underneath the manic energy and pastel smiles, there's the silent terror of slipping behind, of being the one who can't keep up. The parade never ends. The expectations never fade. And if you stop for even a moment, the gossip will circle like sharks smelling blood in chlorinated water. So you smile, wave, and join the parade, one pill at a time, knowing the only thing faster than neighborhood gossip is the speed in your own bloodstream. In the 1950s suburbs, that's just how you survive. You visit the family doctor for nerves or fatigue. He listens to your pulse, nods sagely, and writes a prescription with a flourish. It's less therapy, more controlled substance distribution. But who's counting? Let's take a trip to the doctor's office. An event as much a ritual as washing the kitchen floor or arranging carnations in a milk glass vase. You arrive clutching your purse and your nerves, greeted by a receptionist in a pastel dress, who hands you a clipboard and a sympathetic smile. The waiting room is a museum of postwar optimism, shiny chairs, magazines promising thinner thighs, and a faint aroma of antiseptic mixed with hairspray. Every woman here has the same look, wide-eyed, polite, and secretly calculating how much housework isn't getting done during this brief escape. The nurse calls your name. You step onto the scale, pretending not to care about the number, but knowing full well it's another measure you'll be judged by. Blood pressure, temperature, pulse, a litany of minor indignities. She asks about your sleep, your appetite, your mood. You answer honestly in the language of the 1950s. Just a little tired, maybe a touch of the nerves. It's nothing really. What you mean is I haven't sat down in 6 months, and last night, I alphabetize the pantry at 2 a.m. Then it's time for the main event. The doctor himself. He enters, white coat crisp, tie knotted, hair slicked back in a universal style of men who don't do their own laundry. He glances at your chart, nods as you explain that you're just not yourself lately. Worn out, anxious, maybe a little irritable with the children, and unable to keep up with the pace of modern life. He doesn't ask about your marriage, your ambitions, or your actual feelings. Instead, he smiles knowingly. He's heard all before. He launches into a comforting spiel. It's perfectly normal, Mrs. Johnson. Women today are under so much pressure. Why, with all your responsibilities, it's a wonder you're still standing. But we have wonderful solutions now. Science has made incredible advances. He says the words science and modern medicine as if they're magic spells that will banish all doubts. Out comes the prescription pad, as reliable as sunrise. A few quick scribbles, and you're the proud owner of a month's supply of Mother's Little Helper. Amphetamines, maybe with a bonus tranquilizer thrown in for good measure. There's no talk of side effects, no warnings about dependency, just a cheerful reassurance that this will pick you right up and maybe even help you drop a few pounds. If you don't, I mind my saying so. The whole exchange takes less time than buying a loaf of bread and is about as personal. You leave with a slip of paper that promises energy, order, and a return to the self you're expected to be. Sparkling, tireless, forever pleasant. On your way out, you stop by the pharmacy where the pharmacist fills your order with the same discretion as a priest hearing confession. The bottle is handed over in a small paper bag labeled "Take as needed," which is delightfully vague. As needed by whom? You, your husband, the entire PDA. No one seems to mind. Outside, you sit in your car, prescription in hand, feeling a strange cocktail of relief and resignation. You know, every woman in your book club has a similar bottle tucked in her purse. No one talks about it openly, but everyone's in on the secret. It's the silent bond of 1950s motherhood. When nerves fray, when energy flags, when life becomes a blur of chores and expectations, the doctor will see you now, and so will his little helpers. Back home, you tuck the bottle into your medicine cabinet next to the aspirin and the cold cream. Maybe you'll feel more like yourself tomorrow. Maybe you'll finally catch up. Or maybe like every other woman on your block, you'll just survive another day, one tiny white pill at a time. It's only 10 a.m. You've changed 3 diapers, baked a cake, arranged the living room pillows by color, and started questioning the meaning of life. Time for another little pick-me-up. Welcome to the relentless circus that is a weekday morning in mid-century suburbia. You've already gotten the kids dressed. 2 in matching plaid, 1 in a cowboy outfit, and the baby in something vaguely clean. Breakfast is over, or at least it's smeared across the walls. You've wiped down the counters, chased the dog out of the trash, and discovered 3 stray socks in the oven. The cake is cooling or burning, depending on whether you remember to set the timer being summoned to the bathroom by a toddler with an emergency. Spoiler: it's never actually an emergency unless you count a single Cheerio in the toilet as deafened one. The house is alive with noise. The baby is screaming because her blanket feels funny. The 4-year-old is threatening the goldfish with a plastic cowboy. And someone is already hungry again. Your husband is at work, or at least you assume he is, since he left with a briefcase and the same look of freedom a dog gives when you open the backyard gate. Meanwhile, you're multitasking like a one-woman assembly line, folding laundry, prepping lunch, keeping the peace, and breaking up an argument over whose turn it is to name the dust bunnies under the sofa. On top of all this, there's the cake, a centerpiece for this afternoon's impromptu coffee gathering, which is anything but impromptu. In the 1950s, every visit is an event, and every cake is a performance. The frosting has to be just right, the sprinkles evenly distributed, and the whole thing needs to look effortless, as if you woke up at dawn feeling inspired by Julia Child, and not in fact running on 4 hours of sleep and 1 existential crisis. As the morning whirls on, You glance at the clock and wonder how it can only be 10, 12. You could swear you've lived a whole day already. This is the moment, the perfect moment for your next pick-me-up. You sneak into the bathroom, close the door, and like a secret agent on a covert mission, reach into the medicine cabinet for that little bottle with your name on it. As needed, it says, if anyone asks, you'll explain that needed is just a synonym for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. You pop the pill, splash water on your face, and rehearse your everything's fine smile in the mirror. The world expects grace, not exhaustion. You emerge, newly energized, ready to conquer the next wave of chaos. The kids have moved on to painting the dog again. The baby is chewing on a plate shoe, and you step over a sea of Legos with the dexterity of a ninja who's late for a bake sale. You straighten the pillows again, rescue the mail from the dog, and try to remember if you've called your mother this week, or if that was just a very vivid dream about overdue thank you notes. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a little voice asks, is this it? Is this my life? It's the soft, persistent hum of existential terror humming along with the vacuum cleaner and the percolator. You ponder for a moment, then remember that existential dread is a luxury for people who don't have to referee a wrestling match over the last Fig Newton. Still, there's a strange pride in the juggling act. You're keeping a dozen plates spinning. Kids, cake, chaos, and the constant demand for snacks. The world doesn't see the tightrope, the near misses, or the marathon sprints between laundry and sanity. It just sees the cake, the clean house, the happy kids. So, you laugh, sweep up the crumbs, and carry on. Because in the 1950s, juggling kids, cake, and existential terror is just part of the job description. And besides, you've got a little help, one white pill at a time. Everyone wants to be slim. The secret? A little amphetamine lace vitamin with breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner. Who needs food when you have speed? Step into the 1950s where the world is obsessed with waistlines and the battle of the bulge is the real Cold War. Every magazine cover in the checkout aisle features women with impossibly tiny waists, hips that could cut glass and smiles that say, I haven't chewed solid food since Easter. Ads promise that happiness comes in a size 6 dress. And, conveniently, the pharmacy sells the shortcut. It's not just social pressure. It's a national campaign. Doctors, fashion editors, and even your neighbor Janet agree. A lady should watch her figure. As if you weren't already watching every bite, every calorie sideways glance at the dessert tray. There's a new miracle solution. Of course, diet pills, which are really just amphetamines in a pretty bottle, masquerading as vitamins with names like Slimt, Reducing Aid, or the ever-mysterious metabolic booster. Every morning, right after your coffee, and before your second round of toast, you take your appetite suppressant. The pill's job is simple. Convince your brain that food is optional. Hunger is a personality flaw, and thinness is next to godliness. Suddenly, you're not hungry. Not for breakfast, not for lunch, not even when the PDA sets out an entire table of cookies that look like a Betty Crocker fever dream. Instead, you're polishing the silver, organizing the pantry, and alphabetizing your spices, running on a nervous energy that feels equal parts accomplishment and existential crisis. You're not alone, of course. The entire block is secretly supplementing their willpower with a little chemical reinforcement. Ruth down the street is on the green pills, which she swears speed up her metabolism, but mostly just make her paint the garage at midnight. Carol prefers the pink ones, less jittery, more cheerful, with the added bonus of making her forget about lunch altogether. At Bridge Club, everyone sipping Diet Right Cola and pretending the plate of celery sticks is just what they were craving. No one touches the cheese puffs. They're for the kids, who ironically get to eat whatever they want. The magazines, of course, are no help. Each issue offers a new miracle food, a new set of exercises, and at least 3 diets with conflicting rules. Grapefruit for breakfast, cottage cheese for lunch, steak, and air for dinner. There's the Hollywood diet, the Scarsdale diet, and the suspicious hot dog and cabbage diet, which is both a menu and a warning label. The only constant is the quiet understanding that if you're hungry, you're probably doing it wrong. Somewhere between the hunger pangs and the light-headed afternoons, you notice your dresses fit looser. Your mother-in-law, ever vigilant, comments, "You're looking so slender, dear. What's your secret?" You smile politely and mutter something about just being busy, as if you weren't operating on the nervous system of a caffeinated squirrel. Of course, there's a downside. The appetite suppressants don't just take away hunger, they take away sleep, peace of mind, and sometimes your patience for small children waving cookies under your nose. At night, you lie in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if you finally achieved the right shape, or if you've just hallucinated yourself into a new dress size. Your stomach growls, but you ignore it. The real hunger is for approval, for a compliment, for a day when you can eat a sandwich without guilt. Still, you carry on because in the 1950s, thin is in, appetite is out, and the solution to every diet problem is just one little pill away. Calories are the enemy. The bathroom scale is judge and jury, and hunger is just another feeling you're supposed to rise above. The age of the appetite suppressant is here. Bon appetit. Or maybe not. You haven't blinked in 40 minutes, and every shirt in the house is crisp enough to cut glass. Ironing is now an aerobic activity, and you're the undisputed queen of the wrinkle-free. Welcome to the glamorous, steamy battleground of the 1950s laundry room, where the iron never cools and the pile of wrinkled shirts breeds like rabbits. For the modern housewife, ironing isn't just a chore. It's a moral imperative. Wrinkles are weakness. Creases are character. And no child shall step foot in school unless their collar could double as a ruler. The good news, you have a secret weapon prescribed by your very own doctor and tucked discreetly behind starch. Good old amphetamines. With just a little chemical encouragement, you're ready to conquer Mount Laundry and win gold in the Olympic event of pleat perfection. It begins innocently enough. After breakfast, you set up the ironing board, fill the iron with water, and survey the day's challenge. 5 shirts, 3 pairs of pants, 2 blouses, and a tablecloth with more creases than the Sahara. The radio hums along, and the window lets in a rectangle of cheerful morning sunlight. But you're focused, sharper. It's not just the caffeine. It's the little helper you popped after cleaning the kitchen. A pet pill to transform ironing from dull monotony into a one-woman show of speed, skill, and relentless optimism. Suddenly, the iron glides. You press, steam, and smooth with military precision. Lost in the hypnotic rhythm of fabric and heat, the smell of freshly pressed cotton mingles with the sharp, clean scent of starch. Each shirt is transformed from a crumpled heap into a badge of suburban pride. You wield the iron like a conductor's baton, orchestrating the transformation of chaos into order. The shirts stack up. White, blue, plaid, all perfectly crisp, all awaiting their moment of glory. Time vanishes. You haven't checked the clock in ages, but your hands move on autopilot, guided by a strange, wonderful sense of purpose. You iron sleeves with the care of an artist, flatten collars until they could slice bread, and put an extra crease in your husband's pants just to show off. At one point, you iron a napkin into the shape of a swan and wonder if this is how Martha Stewart got her start. The radio announcer reminds you it's almost noon, but you're not tired, not even close. In fact, you feel like you could iron every sheet in the Tri-County area and still have energy left for a brisk walk around the block. Of course, perfection comes at a price. You've developed an eagle eye for imperfections. A single wrinkle becomes a personal affront. You rear on shirts you've already ironed, just to be sure. The family knows to keep their distance. The children learn to appreciate the subtle art of not wrinkling their Sunday best before leaving the house. Your husband, blissfully unaware of the high-stakes drama unfolding in the laundry room, simply nods with approval as he buttons a shirt so sharp it could deflect negative comments from his boss. There's a meditative quality to it all. The hiss of steam, the gentle weight of the iron, the rows of neatly folded clothes. In this moment, ironing is more than just a battle against entropy. It's a fleeting victory over the uncontrollable messiness of life. Here in this warm, starchy haven, you are in control, at least until the children come home and immediately sit on the clean laundry. Eventually, the adrenaline fades. You look around at the stacks of perfect shirts, the immaculate pillowcases, the gleaming ironing board, and feel a quiet pride. Maybe tomorrow you'll tackle the curtains. Maybe you'll finally iron the sheets. Or maybe you'll just sit for a moment, blink, and let yourself believe, if only briefly, that you've finally pressed the world into shape, one wrinkle at a time. Television is your companion. Soap operas, commercials for dish soap, and an endless parade of perfectly quiet women who look suspiciously energetic. Are they on the same pills as you? Almost certainly. It's mid-morning. The house is spotless for now. The laundry is drying, and the kids are briefly contained. One coloring, one napping, one threatening to launch a campaign for more cookies. This, according to the glossy magazines, is your time. In reality, it's you, the television, and a mug of Sanker that's somehow both cold and still too strong. You sink into the faded floral sofa, grateful for a moment of silence, and switch on the zenith. A familiar hum fills the room, followed by the parade of 1950s daytime television, Technicolor smiles, gentle piano music, and the gentle suggestion that your happiness is just one cleaning product away. First up, it's the soap operas. The stories are always the same. Beautiful women with complicated hair, husbands with secrets, and doctors who never actually practice medicine. You watch as Barbara learns her fiancé is secretly her cousin, then sigh into a doily. It's all delicious nonsense. But in a world where your own drama involves a sticky floor and a missing sock, it's nice to escape into a fantasy where the biggest problem is amnesia, not burnt meatloaf. The commercials come fast and thick, promising miracles in every bottle. Are you tired, run down, behind on your housework? The voice and tones? As a smiling actress scrubs a bathtub with more enthusiasm than anyone has ever actually felt about mildew. Try Miracle Suds. Cleans twice as fast, and leave your bathroom smelling like a spring meadow. You know that look in her eye. She's not just excited about cleaning. She's probably had a little medicinal help. You recognize that manic gleam, the same one you caught in the mirror this morning as you reorganize the pantry at the speed of sound. After the cleaning products, the parade of improved foods, boxed dinners, instant pudding, margarine that spreads like butter and almost tastes like it. Every commercial is a gentle reminder that life should be easier, more efficient, and just a bit more cheerful if only you buy the right product, follow the right routine, or maybe, just maybe, take the right pill. The talk shows are next. Hostesses with perfect posture and gentle, reasonable voices discuss everything from table settings to the latest diet trends. You listen as Mrs. Peterson from Indiana explains how she lost 20 on Drive Stanley's new figure plan, which based on her unblinking gaze and relentless optimism, you suspect involved more than just cutting out cake. The audience claps politely. You sip your coffee and wonder if your heart is supposed to beat this fast. Children's programming drifts in by late morning. A symphony of puppet voices, sing-alongs, and cartoon animals with suspiciously complex moral dilemmas. Your toddler is captivated. You are less so, though you find yourself humming the theme song to Mr. Froggy's fun parade while scrubbing. Yesterday's spaghetti from the linoleum. Through it all, television is a constant companion, a friend, a lifeline, and sometimes a gentle rival for your attention span. You watch the parade of commercials, game shows, and melodramas through a gentle chemical haze, comforted by the sense that somewhere in some pristine TV studio, Other women are living your life, only with brighter lighting and a larger cleaning budget. You catch yourself daydreaming about winning the grand prize on a quiz show. A year's supply of soap and a weekend alone in a hotel room with blackout curtains and no ironing board. Eventually, you turn off the TV and rise from the sofa, gently buzzing, slightly entertained, and more than a little envious of the woman on screen whose only job is to look radiant and sell hand cream. Real life resumes. The day marches on, and you head back into the fray. One jingle, one pill, and one perfectly crafted smile at a time. Pharmacies in the 1950s. Part medical facility, part speakeasy, part confessional booth. The pharmacist knows everything, dispenses more amphetamines than advice, and never judges. It's noon, the sun is bright, and the errands are calling. At the top of the list, right above bread, milk, and another can of mushroom soup, is the daily pilgrimage to the neighborhood pharmacy. You might say you're just picking up a prescription or a bottle of cough syrup. But in suburbia, the pharmacy is as much a social hub as the church or the beauty parlor. The place buzzes with low-level secrets and the faint, reassuring smell of rubbing alcohol and bubble gum. You walk through the door, greeted by the jingle of a bell and a chorus of, "Well, good morning," from Mrs. Jensen, who's already in line with a bag of mysterious ointments. Behind her, Ruth gossips softly about the PDA, glancing at the rack of greeting cards to make sure no one's eavesdropping. The pharmacist, Mr. Andrews, stands behind the counter in his spotless white coat, ready to offer you the kind of advice that never quite answers your questions. There's a rhythm to these visits. You peruse the shelves, picking up a bottle of vitamins you don't need, a tin of mints for the kids, and a magazine with a picture of a woman smiling at a salad. But you're really here for your prescription, the one tucked into a little paper bag with your name written in careful script. The exchange is discreet, almost ceremonial. You give Mr. Andrews a knowing look. He nods and slides the bag across the counter, as if handing you the nuclear codes. "Feeling better?" he asks quietly, which is less a medical question and more a coded message. The truth is, you're not sure. But the pills work, or at least they make you fast enough to keep up with the house, the kids, and your own relentless standards. He offers a sympathetic smile, then moves on to Mrs. Jensen, who's explaining that her husband's allergies are worse than ever. Bless his heart. The pharmacy is where you catch up on everything that matters and nothing at all. It's not just about medicine. It's about news, connection, and a certain kind of suburban therapy. You overhear Ruth whispering about Janet's new pet prescription, the one she swears by for energy and appetite control. It's the pink ones this time. Doctor says they're all the rage. You nod, pretending you're only half listening, but everyone knows everyone's business anyway. Secrets don't last long, especially not between the vitamins and the foot powder. Outside, the world moves at a gentler pace. But inside the pharmacy, time seems to bend. You linger by the makeup counter, test a coral lipstick, and contemplate a bottle of lavender bath oil you know you'll never use. The magazines beckon with promises of instant happiness, 10-minute dinners, and the latest Hollywood scandal. You leaf through the pages, half present, half floating in the calm haze of a ritual that soothes as much as it enables. Before you leave, you make the rounds, chatting with the other women, swapping casserole recipes, comparing notes on school plays, bake sales, and the rising price of eggs. Someone mentions the new pharmacist at the branch on Main Street, and there's a collective pause. He's nice, but he doesn't know the routine. You all nod, secure in the knowledge that Mr. Andrews is a keeper of confidences, a silent partner in every domestic triumph and chemical shortcut. With your prescription in your purse, and your head buzzing with 100 half-finished conversations, you step out into the sunlight, ready to tackle the rest of your day. The errands continue. The world resumes its spin. But for a moment, you've been part of the great suburban pharmacy ritual, a daily confession, a brief escape, and the unspoken assurance that at least in this small corner of the world, everyone is in it together, one little white pill at a time. Household finances require focus. Thankfully, your brain is running at 78 revolutions per minute, and your hands can balance a checkbook and rearrange the pantry simultaneously. It's early afternoon, which in 1950 suburbia means two things. The children are either napping or attempting to stage a coup in the backyard. And you, armed with a pencil, a pile of receipts, and enough artificial energy to power a blender, are about to tackle the weekly budget. The kitchen table transforms into a war room. Out come the checkbook, the calculator, a stack of utility bills, and a notebook with columns so straight even the IRS would nod in approval. On the radio, a cheerful announcer insists that saving for the future is just a matter of discipline. If only he knew. You glance at the neat row of glass jars on the windowsill, each labeled for a different category. Groceries, milk, laundry, emergencies, and the ever-optimistic vacation fund. Last week, you raided that jar for milk money and never put it back. The guilt lingers, but so does the fantasy of one day seeing the ocean, or at least a hotel with room service. You take a deep breath, feeling the amphetamines begin to peak. Suddenly, the numbers make sense. Columns align. Addition is effortless, and you can remember the price of bread from 3 months ago. You pay the gas bill. Make a note about the rising price of eggs, and cross-reference your grocery list with the coupons stuck to the fridge. Multitasking is easy when your thoughts are zipping along like cars on the interstate. You feel like a living, breathing spreadsheet, organized, relentless, and just a little bit haunted by the possibility of overdrawing the account. Meanwhile, you're still running the household orchestra. While balancing the checkbook, you stir a simmering pot of soup, separate fighting children with a single raised eyebrow, and answer the phone. No, Ruth, I can't host bridge this Thursday. The silverware is busy. You jot down a reminder to buy more stamps and marvel at your own efficiency. At this rate, you could probably solve world hunger. If only someone would send you the receipts. But there's an undercurrent of anxiety to every calculation. Every penny has a destination. Every purchase is a negotiation. You tally up the grocery receipts, realize you're $1 over, and immediately start revising the week's meal plan. Hamburger helper on Monday, casserole on Tuesday, pancakes for dinner on Wednesday. Again, you scan the calendar, double-check the PDA dues, and sigh. When you see the date of the next school fundraiser, you pencil it in with the resigned energy of someone who knows every raffle ticket sold is one less scoop of real ice cream for the kids. The checkbook doesn't lie, and neither do the growing stacks of IUS tucked in your sewing kit for emergencies. But there's a strange pride in keeping everything running. Even when the math gets creative, you sharpen your pencil, adjust your glasses, and check the totals just in case the amphetamines are making you too optimistic. Is that really a 7, or just your hand shaking? Sometimes your heart races as the totals dance in front of your eyes. You're never quite sure if it's the caffeine, the pills, or the slow creep of adult responsibility, but you persevere. You balance the checkbook, tape another receipt to the inside of the pantry, and tell yourself you're not just surviving, you're managing, orchestrating, holding it all together with equal parts tenacity and chemical assistance. By the time the kids crash through the back door, covered in grass stains and wild ideas, you've reconciled the accounts, revised the budget, and planned tomorrow's meals. You close the checkbook with a satisfied snap, heart pounding, but head clear. Another victory for suburban mathematics and modern medicine. A balancing act that keeps the lights on, the fridge full, and your pulse some. We're above the speed limit. It's 3 p.m. You're idling in a Chevy, clutching the steering wheel and plotting the most efficient route through the after-school chaos. It's not road rage. It's just the diet pills talking. There's a peculiar kind of tension in the air, one you can almost see shimmering above the row of station wagons lined up outside the elementary school. The mothers of suburbia sit, Engines running, radios murmuring, all eyes glued to the double doors like cats at a canary convention. This is no ordinary errand. This is the suburban Grand Prix, the school pickup line, where patience is a virtue and lane discipline is a myth. You tap the dashboard with nervous fingers, mentally rehearsing the choreography. The school bell rings at 3:05, which means you have precisely 5 minutes to inch forward, claim your spot, and avoid getting boxed in by Ruth's monstrous Oldsmobile. There's a pecking order here, carved in stone by years of unspoken rules and silent alliances. Janet always arrives early and stakes her claim with a Tupperware tumbler of iced tea perched on the hood, signaling that she's not moving for anyone. Carol, meanwhile, is perpetually late, sailing in with seconds to spare, windows down, music blaring, her chaotic energy both or inspiring and deeply annoying. Your brain turbocharged by a late afternoon pep pill and 2 cups of lukewarm Sanker is firing on all cylinders. You calculate alternate routes, scan for hazards, toddlers, bicycles, the PDA president with another fundraising form, and keep one eye on the rearview mirror. The children haven't even emerged yet, but the competition has already begun. The unspoken contest. Who can pick up their kids, collect all the backpacks, and escape the parking lot first without resorting to violence or running over a crossing guard. Inside your car, the radio crackles out advice from a cheerful DJ. Don't forget, folks, safety first. But outside, it's a free-for-all. Engines rev, tempers flare, and the windows fog up with anticipation. You spot Barbara, the queen of carpool organization, already corralling 3 kids and a science project that looks suspiciously radioactive. She flashes you a smile, but you both know what's at stake. Dignity, pride, and if you're lucky, a smooth getaway. Finally, the doors fly open and a tidal wave of children spills forth, waving construction paper masterpieces and half-eaten apples. You squint, trying to identify your own offspring in the blur of identical plaid shirts and cowlicks. As the line inches forward, you spot your youngest, wrestling with a backpack and a questionable art project. You lean out the window, waving with the energy of a game show contestant, and call their name just loud enough to embarrass but not mortify. The loading process is a masterclass in efficiency. Doors pop open, kids tumble in, and you feel a barrage of simultaneous requests. Snacks, money for the book fair, an explanation for why everyone else's mom brings homemade cookies. You hand out graham crackers, dodge spilled juice, and crank up the air conditioning. All the while, your pulse is still tapping out Morse code, courtesy of your pharmaceutical booster. Escape is the next challenge. You scan for gaps in the line, gauge the speed of the minivan behind you, and offer up a silent prayer to the gods of right-of-way. There's always that one dad in the pickup truck who ignores the order of things, cutting through the lot like he's auditioning for a demolition derby. You grit your teeth, grip the wheel, and slip into traffic, victorious for now. Back home, you unload kids, backpacks, and rogue snacks. Your heart is still racing, your mind already on the next task. Homework, dinner, damage control. The pickup line is over, but the rail marathon continues. In the world of 1950s suburbia, sometimes survival means outmaneuvering the other moms. One caffeine-fueled victory lap at a time. Every dinner is a production. Meatloaf, Jell-O, and 3 vegetables. No 2 alike. If you run out of energy, there's always another little helper in the kitchen drawer. It's 4:30 p.m., the witching hour for housewives everywhere. You stand in the kitchen, surrounded by the raw materials of domestic achievement. Ground beef, cans of cream of mushroom soup, limp celery, and enough potatoes to sculpt a replica of Mount Rushmore. The pressure is on. Dinner isn't just a meal. It's a nightly test. A grade on your report card as a wife, mother, and budding culinary artist. Tonight's challenge. Make it all look effortless, delicious, and vaguely inspired by something you saw in Good Housekeeping. even if the only thing you remember is that the featured house had double ovens and 3 servants. You roll up your sleeves, tie on a starched apron, and take inventory. Meatloaf, safe, filling, and if you're lucky, moist enough not to require emergency gravy. Jell-O, that shimmering miracle of modern chemistry, is chilling in a Pike dish. Suspended fruit slices glinting like rare gems. For vegetables, you select a trio because variety is the spice of suburban life. Peas, canned, carrots, boiled, and cauliflower served with a cheerful cheese sauce to disguise its true nature. The performance begins. The radio plays a gentle waltz, and you start chopping, peeling, and mixing at a pace only achievable with a little pharmaceutical pep. Meatloaf goes into the oven, followed by an anxious glance at the clock. Every detail counts. The potatoes must be fluffy. The Jell-O must jiggle, just so. And the table must be set with perfect symmetry. The napkins are folded into triangles. The silverware gleams, and the water glasses are free of fingerprints because in this house standards aren't just high, they're practically levitating. Meanwhile, you field questions and crises from all sides. The children have entered the starving stage, circling the kitchen like sharks. You toss them carrot sticks and crackers, hoping to preserve their appetites and your sanity until dinner. Your husband calls from the den wondering what's for supper and whether you remember to pick up his dry cleaning. You respond with a smile and a cheery, almost ready, while privately debating the merits of moving to a remote cabin with only squirrels for company. There are moments of true culinary drama. The gravy curdles, the potatoes threaten to scorch, and the Jell-O will not be rushed. You break a sweat but not a smile. When your energy wanes, you dip into the drawer and retrieve a discreet tablet, just enough to finish plating with flair. On speed, even arranging parsley becomes performance art. At 5:30 sharp, you summon everyone to the table. There's an unspoken ceremony to it all. Dad at the head, children in birth order, you at your post with post-back ET, encouraging glance, and a serving spoon. The meatloaf is sliced with reverence. The vegetables are dutifully passed around, and the Jell-O wobbles in the center, shimmering with the promise of modern convenience. Conversation flows sometimes, and for one brief moment, it almost feels like the magazines, family, food, harmony. But behind the scenes, you're still juggling, refilling glasses, mopping spills, intercepting peas that roll off plates. You field complaints about the color of the carrots, referee arguments over who got the biggest slice, and cut the meatloaf into shapes for the child who's decided they're only eating squares this week. As dinner ends, you survey the table. Half-eaten vegetables, empty plates, a few globs of Jell-O. The applause is silent but understood. Another meal, another performance, another day survive in the bright, relentless spotlight of 1950s domesticity. You clear the dishes, untie your apron, and congratulate yourself. In this kitchen, every dinner is a triumph. Every night, a small standing ovation, even if the only audience is you, your nerves, and the comforting hum of a very clean refrigerator. Your husband comes home. Is dinner ready? Is your hair perfect? Is your smile too wide? There's no margin for error. Good thing you're chemically incapable of fatigue. It's 4:55 p.m. The air in the house is heavy with the scent of meatloaf, scorched peas, and lemon-scented floor polish. There's a certain nervous crackle, the kind you feel before a surprise quiz or a visit from the headmistress. The children have been corralled and wiped clean. The table is set to sparkling magazine standards. You do a final pass through the living room, straightening pillows, fluffing curtains, and kicking a single toy soldier under the sofa with the discretion of a spy. You smooth your skirt, dab on a little more lipstick, and check your hair for stray pins or existential dread. This, you remind yourself, is the most important 5 minutes of the day. The breadwinner is about to return, and everything must be perfect. This is not just dinner. This is theater. The dog senses it too, parking himself by the front door, tail wagging, ready to greet the returning hero. You sneak a glance at the clock. He's almost home. Your heart thumps. Equal parts anticipation and caffeine. If only he could see how many times you've checked your reflection. How many times you've practiced your welcome home smile in the hallway mirror. It's wide but not manic. Pleasant but not desperate. A tightrope walk across the linoleum. A car door slams outside. The breadwinner has arrived. You take a breath, check your posture, and open the door with the choreography of a flight attendant greeting a VIP. He walks in, briefcase in one hand, a newspaper tucked under the other, ties slightly askew from a day of real work. He smiles, thanks you for dinner, and drops his things on the very table you just wiped for the 5th time. The children rush to him, and for a moment the room is loud with greetings, laughter, and the rapid exchange of everyone's most important story of the day. This is the performance you've rehearsed all afternoon. You shepherd everyone to the table, serving meatloaf with a flourish, offering peas and potatoes, pouring ice water into glasses with the grace of a maître d'. Your husband remarks that dinner smells good, and you beam, storing away the compliment for the inevitable day when he notices a burnt edge or a missing salt shaker. The kids chatter, and you do your best to keep the peace, passing napkins and ignoring the peas being flicked under the table. But underneath it all is a background hum, the anxiety that everything must be just right. You listen for signs. Does he seem happy? Does he notice the new curtains? Will he ask why the garage door still squeaks? Or worse, why you look a little tired? He doesn't know that tiredness for you is just a distant memory, one pill ago long gone. You ask about his day, nod at the stories, and marvel at the foreign land that is the office. You are the gracious hostess, the attentive mother, and the ever-pleasant spouse, all in one. Occasionally, your mind wonders, does he appreciate all this, or does he just expect it? Is this really the summit of post-war happiness, a clean house, a hot meal, and everyone smiling on cue? For a moment, you think of all the invisible labor, the clockwork choreography that makes every evening possible. But there's no time to dwell. Plates are emptied, seconds are requested, and dessert, Jell-O again, waits in the fridge. After dinner, your husband retires to the den, newspaper in hand. The children scatter, and the applause for tonight's performance is silent but palpable. You clear the plates, wash the dishes, and find yourself already preparing for tomorrow's encore. It's 5 p.m., anxiety hour, but you survive another act. Nerves humming, smile unwavering, and not a hair out of place. In this house, the show always goes on. Your calendar is so packed it needs its own amphetamine prescription. Volunteering, organizing, and pretending you're delighted to host the book club. For the 3rd time this month, let's talk about social obligation in 1950s suburbia. In theory, you're a stay-at-home housewife with plenty of time to spare. In reality, your days are as tightly scheduled as a presidential motorcade, minus the security detail. Every week brings a parade of meetings, fundraisers, bake sales, and book club gatherings. Each one another opportunity to prove that your life is not only in perfect order, but also brimming with wholesome enthusiasm. The PDA is the first battlefield. You attend every meeting, clutching a notebook and a pen, ready to jot down assignments like organize the cakewalk or collect 50 pairs of donated mittens by Friday. There's always one mother, usually Janet, who volunteers for everything, and her mere existence pushes you to keep up. You scribble your name onto the sign-up sheets, even as your mind screams for mercy, and your pantry wonders how many more brownies it can handle. Then there are the bake sales, those edible Olympics of maternal achievement. Each mother brings her best recipe, hoping for compliments and a little neighborhood glory. You try to outdo yourself each time. Last week it was 7-layer bars. This week you're considering a pineapple upside-down cake, even though the last one stuck to the pan and ended up looking like an archaeological dig. Every bake sale table is a minefield of comparisons. Whose cookie sold out first? Whose pie looked store-bought, the ultimate insult? And whose lemon squares ended up with the PDA president's lipstick on them? The book club is supposed to be a relaxing escape, but even there, appearances matter. You host with freshly polished silverware and the good tea set, laying out a spread of finger sandwiches and dainty pastries. The conversation inevitably drifts away from the chosen novel, which only half the group has read, and into a polite but ruthless audit of everyone's living room curtains and magazine subscriptions. No one mentions pills, but everyone is a little too bright-eyed, a little too eager to get through the next project. Of course, keeping up appearances isn't just about the events. It's about the constant, invisible competition with your peers. Janet's children have perfect attendance. Ruth's husband just won an award at the Rotary Club. Carol redecorated her dining room again, and you're still hoping no one notices the chipped paint in the hallway. Social obligations become performance art. You smile, nod, and pass the lemon squares, knowing everyone else is just as exhausted and caffeinated as you are. And yet, you can't stop. Opting out is not an option. Too many missed meetings, and you risk whispers, or worse, outright concern. Is everything all right at home? Someone will ask, which is code for why can't you keep up? So you keep the calendar packed, the Tupperware polished, and your hair as neat as your reputation. At every meeting, every bake sale, every book club, you play your part, fueled by a steady drip of caffeine, adrenaline, and a little pharmaceutical backup. At the end of another busy week, you look back over the calendar, marveling at all you've survived. The appearances are kept, the obligations met, and the illusion of effortless grace maintained for another 7 days. The world sees a woman who does it all. You know better, but you also know that in 1950 suburbia, sometimes just keeping up is the real achievement. You haven't felt tired in days. Or maybe you have, but the pills won't let you admit it. Nighttime brings a new challenge. How to sleep when your brain is still doing laps. There's a peculiar irony. In 1950 suburbia, everyone talks about housework, about recipes, about just needing a little more energy, but no one ever mentions sleep. After a day spent running on a cocktail of caffeine, adrenaline, and government-sanctioned speed, the modern housewife faces her final silent battle, getting any rest at all. The kids are tucked in. The dishes are done. The dog has been walked again. And your husband is already snoring in the next room. It should be peaceful. The house is finally quiet, lit only by the pale blue glow of the street lamp outside and the reassuring hum of the refrigerator. This is your moment, your one slice of solitude. But your body, cheerfully medicated and thoroughly overcaffeinated, has other plans. You slip into bed, fluffing the pillows, smoothing the sheets, arranging everything just so, as if sleep can be coaxed by symmetry. The clock reads 11:07. You tell yourself, early to bed, early to rise. But your heart is tapping out Morse code, and your thoughts are racing through tomorrow's list. Did you remember to thaw the chicken? Is it your week for the carpool? Where did you put the library book? Why is the dog still making that noise? Every minor anxiety is suddenly magnified, projected onto the ceiling like a drive-in movie for one. You close your eyes. The world refuses to cooperate. Your mind, now running on a second wind that feels suspiciously pharmaceutical, replays the day in high-speed montage. Laundry, groceries, bake sale, school forms, ironing, dinner, dishes, PDA, book club, and that conversation with Janet about Mother's Little Helper. You count sheep, then to-do lists. Then the number of nights you've spent like this, wound up, eyes wide, desperate for rest. Around midnight, you try every trick you know. Warm milk makes you queasy. A lavender sach causes sneezing. Reading a magazine just makes you anxious about your wallpaper. Your husband rolls over oblivious. And you wonder, how does he just shut off like that? Men are like desk lamps. Flip the switch, and out goes the light. Women, on the other hand, are more like malfunctioning Christmas trees, always flickering, never quite off. By 1 a.m., you start negotiating with yourself. Maybe you could just get up and fold some laundry, polish the silver, write a thank you note. But you know how this goes. Given once, and suddenly you're vacuuming at 2 in the morning, and the neighbors are asking questions. Eventually, some time after 2 a.m., your body gives up before your brain. You drift off, not in a peaceful restorative slumber, but into a series of restless naps punctuated by dreams of missed appointments and runaway casseroles. When the alarm blar at 6 a.m., you rise with the practiced skill of someone who has forgotten what well-rested even feels like. The next day, you'll smile and say, "Oh, I never sleep well. Just too much to do." No one blinks. Every woman in the neighborhood knows exactly what you mean. In 1950 suburbia, the sleep problem is the secret nobody talks about. Hidden under perfectly made beds, camouflaged by lipstick and good manners, quietly swept away with yesterday's crumbs. But you'll get through it. You always do. After all, there's coffee and another little helper and another full, exhausting, wide-awake day just waiting for you to begin. Sometimes the pills stop working. Tears in the pantry. Hysterics at the dinner table. Everyone's nervous, but nobody's allowed to be unhappy. Enter the next prescription. In the world of 1950s suburbia, emotions are managed as carefully as the weekly laundry. You are expected to be upbeat, organized, and unfailingly cheerful. Any crack in the veneer, an unwashed dish, an offhanded sigh, a single misplaced curl is treated as a sign that something is terribly wrong. But feelings like dust have a way of collecting in the corners, and eventually, no amount of energy pills can keep them contained. It begins quietly. Maybe you cry in the pantry after burning dinner for the second night in a row. Maybe you lose your temper over spilled milk, and then apologize so many times your child offers you a tissue. Or maybe you just stop caring for a few hours, letting the laundry pile up, letting the phone go unanswered, sitting at the kitchen table and staring at a half-finished grocery list. The dread creeps in, disguised as exhaustion. You tell yourself you're just tired, even though tired doesn't explain the ache in your chest or the feeling that you're being buried alive under your own to-do list. The husband, meanwhile, is sympathetic but baffled. "You just need to relax, honey," he says, handing you a glass of water and a look of gentle concern. He means well, but he doesn't quite understand. His world is measured in meetings, commutes, and the clink of ice in an evening drink. He expects you to manage the house, the children, the calendar, and if there's time, yourself. Your struggles are dismissed with advice. Get some rest. Take it easy. Have a nice bath. But rest is elusive, and a bath just means sitting in silence with your worries. Eventually, the day comes when the routine shatters. Maybe you have a meltdown crying at the dinner table over peas or yelling at the dog for barking at the mailman. The tears come unstoppable and embarrassing. The children stare. Your husband looks helpless. The air is thick with shame and confusion. Later he will say, "You're just having a spell." The neighbors will whisper about nerves. The doctor will nod knowingly, scribble another prescription, and send you home with something new, something to take the edge off, to calm your nerves, to smooth out the rough spots. Now you have a second bottle, this one for the evenings, a tranquilizer to replace the morning pep pill when your mind refuses to quiet. You feel numb instead of anxious, slow instead of speedy. The house is clean, but your thoughts move like molasses. You wonder which version of yourself your husband prefers, the whirlwind of productivity or the gentle ghost gliding through the evening. Nobody talks about unhappiness. You're expected to be grateful, to count your blessings, to remember how lucky you are. Nervousness is acceptable, but sadness is forbidden. The breakdown is swept under the rug, camouflaged by routine, explained away with new pills and whispered advice from well-meaning friends. And yet, in the privacy of your own thoughts, you know you're not alone. Every woman in your circle has had her moment. The pantry tears, the silent car rides, the long afternoons when nothing seems to fit. You dry your eyes, pick yourself up, and get back to work. Tomorrow is another day, another set of expectations, another round of smiles. Because in the 1950s, the only acceptable breakdown is the kind that can be medicated, scheduled, and quickly swept away, never spoken of, but always understood. Every magazine cover promises happiness in a spotless house. No mention of the amphetamine-fueled panic attack you had over the carpet pattern. You stand in the checkout aisle, boxed in by rows of glossy promises. On every cover, a smiling woman holds a cake, a vacuum, or a baby, sometimes all three, as if multitasking was invented for her alone. Her hair is flawless, her lipstick unblemished, and her dress looks as fresh at 6 p.m. as it did at 6 a.m. You glance at your own reflection in the freezer case. One sock missing, hair flattening by the hour, and a faint, desperate shine in your eyes, courtesy of this morning's pep. The magazines beckon with easy answers. 10 ways to please your husband. How to host the perfect luncheon. Secrets to sparkling floors and sparkling eyes. You flip through the pages, half dreading, half hoping for a new solution. The tips sound simple. Try a new casserole. Polish your silver. Set the table with color-coordinated napkins. And if all else fails, just smile. There's no section on existential dread, marital ennui, or the existential crisis of picking the right drapes. Inside each article, the women are relentlessly cheerful, their homes suspiciously tidy, their children quietly drawing at the table, and their husbands beaming like they just won the lottery. Not a wrinkle, not a single spot on the window, not a single stray emotion except joy. If you look closely, though, there's something almost frantic in their smiles, a glint of performance that any real housewife can recognize at 50 paces. It's not just about appearance, it's about narrative. The magazine fantasy is a story that everything is always under control. The difficult emotions can be managed with a new hairdo or a clever recipe for aspic. The world these women inhabit is pastel and perfect, untouched by chaos, anxiety, or disappointment. If trouble does arise, it's solved in 3 steps or less with a peppy attitude and maybe a discreet product placement for dish soap. You try sometimes to recreate the fantasy. You line up the children for a photo, arrange the living room just so, and bake a pie from scratch. But the kids fidget. The couch sags, and the pie comes out looking like a modernist sculpture. Still, you snap a picture, smiling as wide as the women in the magazine, because someday you'll want to remember that you tried. The camera never captures the panic, the exhaustion, or the frantic energy pulsing beneath the surface. Meanwhile, the real world keeps intruding. The laundry multiplies, the groceries run low, and the neighbor casually mentions that her new curtains just brighten up the whole house. You smile and nod, secretly wondering if her secret is a better prescription or just a different magazine. The cycle continues. You compare, you compete, you comfort yourself with the idea that maybe next week you'll finally have it all together. Maybe with a new lipstick or a different casserole or a pill that promises both energy and serenity. In the end, the only thing more exhausting than keeping up with the real housewives is keeping up with their glossy, smiling counterparts. The magazines never admit it. But every woman on your block is just as frazzled, just as anxious, just as desperate for approval as you are. So, you stack the groceries, turn one last page, and put the magazine back on the rack. You step into the parking lot, sunlight glinting off your tired face. And remember, everyone's smiling for the camera, for the neighbors, for themselves. But the real story is written in the quiet spaces between those glossy pages. Kids notice everything, especially when mom is alphabetizing the spice rack at midnight and calling it just a hobby. For the 1950s child, life is mostly simple. School, play, peanut butter sandwiches. But there's always something a little curious about Mom's routines. Mornings begin with the rustle of curtains, the clang of pans, and the faint aroma of bacon. Or is that burnt toast again? Through blurry eyes, you watch her in the kitchen moving with the determined speed of a cartoon tornado. There's breakfast on the table. Lunch is packed. And somehow she's already wearing lipstick before you've even found your socks. At first, it just seems like magic. How does she get so much done before the school bus arrives? You catch glimpses. Mom vacuuming the living room while singing along with the radio, dusting the shelves at record pace, and whisking you out the door with a cheerful, "Hurry up, don't dawdle." Your teacher asks what her mother does all day. You pause, trying to condense the blur into a single answer. She cleans, you say, but that doesn't quite capture the manic ballet you witness every morning. After school, you return home to the sounds of typewriter keys clacking and the television humming. Mom is in the middle of something, a cake, a casserole, or reorganizing the linen closet. Again, sometimes you find her in the backyard, clipping hedges or scrubbing the patio for reasons that seem mysterious and vital. She moves from room to room as if each has its own emergency that only she can solve. You and your siblings invent games around her energy. How many times will Mom say in a minute before you get your snack, "Can you sneak a cookie without her noticing?" Answer: rarely, unless she's deep into the encyclopedia rearrangement project. At dinner, she's the center of the storm, passing plates, pouring milk, refereeing arguments, and reciting everyone's schedules for the week. Dad just smiles, content with his meatloaf. But you and your siblings exchange glances, wondering if other moms are this energetic. The real magic comes after dark. Bedtime arrives, but the house doesn't slow down. You hear drawers opening, the faint buzz of the vacuum, and the unmistakable sound of the spice jars being tapped into alphabetical order. One night, you sneak out for a glass of water and find Mom reorganizing the refrigerator by color. She gives you a sleepy smile, tucks you back in, and whispers, "Just couldn't rest with the pickles next to the jam." You accept this explanation with the certainty only a child possesses. As you drift off, you dream of a world where moms lounge in hammocks and eat ice cream for breakfast. Maybe you think your mom will slow down tomorrow. But in the morning, there she is, refreshed, bustling, full of ideas and chores and just one more thing. The cycle repeats, and you marvel at her ability to keep the whole house spinning. Years later, you'll look back and realize Mom's energy wasn't just natural talent or a side effect of too much coffee. You'll remember the little bottles in the medicine cabinet, the winks and whispered jokes about Mother's little helper, and you'll understand what was really fueling the midnight cleaning frenzies. But as a child in the 1950s, all you know is that your mother is a marvel, a force of nature with an endless to-do list, a bottomless well of energy, and a talent for turning everyday life into a whirlwind of order and routine. And somehow she always made sure you found your socks. Your neighbor's roses are redder. Her pie is higher. Her smile is possibly manic. The only way to keep up is to double your dosage and hope for the best. It's a bright Saturday morning, and you're sipping your coffee at the kitchen window, surveying the front yard. Across the street, Mrs. Jones is already outside, trimming her rose bushes with the focus of a neurosurgeon and the speed of a caffeinated squirrel. Her lawn is a green carpet, her driveway spotless. Her car gleams like it's auditioning for a magazine cover. You glance at your own garden and sigh. A dandelion waves at you, daring you to do something about it. The suburban arms race is in full swing, and the competition isn't just about roses or lawns. It's pies, window displays, bake sale ribbons, and who can host the most elaborate Tupperware party without losing her mind. Mrs. Jones seems to win at everything. Her pies are always tall and golden, the crust fluted to architectural precision. Her curtains match her couch, which matches her wallpaper, which matches the color of her front door. An achievement that's either genius or a symptom of undiagnosed mania. Of course, nobody admits this is a contest. You exchange cheerful waves, swap recipes at the mailbox, and comment politely on each other's hairs. But beneath the surface, it's a relentless, unspoken rivalry. If Mrs. Jones paints her shutters, you find yourself browsing color swatches before breakfast. If she throws a garden party, you start mentally calculating how many sandwiches and deviled eggs it would take to outdo her. Staying in the race requires stamina, organization, and if you're honest, a little chemical support. The pet pills are discreetly swapped at the pharmacy and just as discreetly discussed at the salon. Everyone's on something, though nobody says it out loud. Mrs. Jones claims she's just a morning person, but you know that look, the wide glassy smile of a woman who can alphabetize her pantry, weed her flower beds, and bake a lemon meringue pie all before noon. Keeping up means never letting your guard down. Every morning brings a new challenge. A fresh patch of weeds, a PDA meeting, a bake sale, a book club, a mysterious new plant in Mrs. Jones's flower bed that appears to be flourishing just despite you. Your heart races as you load another wash, plan another dinner, trim the hedges for the third time this week, and wonder if Mrs. Jones is watching from behind her. Immaculate lace curtains. She always is. The pressure is omnipresent, but nobody ever cracks. If you complain, you're accused of sour grapes. If you slip, someone's bound to notice. Appearances are everything. You plaster on a smile, put on your best dress, and wave from the driveway as if the whole neighborhood is a stage. The performance is exhausting, but quitting isn't an option. You convince yourself that with a little more energy, a little more help from the bottle in your medicine cabinet, you'll finally come out ahead. Deep down, you suspect Mrs. Jones feels the same. Maybe her Saturday energy is just as borrowed, her smiles just as forced, her pie's the product of insomnia and ambition. But in suburbia, no one talks about the strain, the exhaustion, the little pills everyone swears they don't take. So the arms race continues. The roses get redder, the pies get higher, and everyone's smiles get just a touch wider. And as you trim the last dandelion and wave across the lawn, you know the truth. In the great suburban contest, the only way to keep up with the Joneses is to do it at hyperspeed. One day, one task, one little helper at a time. Behind every closed door is a woman who wonders if she's the only one melting down in full makeup. Spoiler, she's not, for all the bright smiles and brisk waves across driveways. There's a quiet truth humming through every pastel-colored block. Underneath the polish, the carefully pressed dresses, and the perfectly pruned petunias is a secret most housewives keep locked up tighter than the good silver. Sometimes it all feels like too much. Everyone is pretending, but no one's sure how well. You sense it in the awkward silences between neighbors, the too hearty laughs at the PDA, the way Mrs. Robinson's voice trembles when she talks about her busy week. It's there when you see Ruth's lipstick slightly smudged, or notice Carol's eyes a little too bright during book club. Everyone shares recipes and hair tips, but nobody ever swaps stories about the panic in the pantry or the tears shed over a scorched casserole. You keep your shame private, sure that if you admitted it, the mask would fall and the whole show would collapse. Yet beneath the surface, there's a silent bond, a sisterhood woven from exhaustion, nerves, and mutual, unspoken relief. In the checkout line at the pharmacy, you catch another woman's eye, and for a split second, you both know. You both recognize the look, the weary gratitude for mother's little helper, the quiet calculation of how long the latest prescription will last, the secret hope that the next refill brings something stronger, or at least something kinder. No one talks about the little bottles in the medicine cabinet, but everyone has them, hidden behind cold cream and cough syrup. Discreet as a rumor, but twice as reliable. Just for nerves, you say if anyone asks. The truth is it's for the nights when you can't sleep. For the mornings when the weight of perfection feels like a brick in your apron pocket. You pray the children don't notice and the neighbors don't gossip. But Deep down, you suspect you're not nearly as good at hiding as you hope. Every so often, the facade cracks. There's a faint whimper at the sound of a breaking plate, a muffled sob in the bathroom while the roast burns, or an outburst at the dinner table that leaves everyone staring at their peas. Afterward, you collect yourself, fix your hair, and hope the blush covers your red eyes. You're not supposed to have bad days. Not when you have so much to be grateful for. Not when every magazine tells you happiness is a casserole away. So, you keep your secrets, polish your surfaces, and pretend along with everyone else. But the beauty of this silent sisterhood is that despite all the hiding, you're never truly alone. One day, you find an anonymous note of encouragement tucked in your mailbox, just a scribbled, "Hang in there," with no signature. Someone brings you cookies just because. At the next PDA meeting, Ruth quietly slips you a recipe card and a knowing wink. No one says the word struggle, but it hangs in the air, softer than a sigh, strong as coffee. So the next time you find yourself crying in the pantry, shoes still on and pearls slightly askew, remember you are part of a club much larger than you think. The shame may be secret, but the sisterhood is real. An invisible network of women who see you, know you, and quietly root for you, one perfectly imperfect day at a time. In 1950 suburbia, you survive not just with pills or casseroles, but with the quiet comfort of knowing that somewhere nearby, another woman is holding it together right alongside you. Eventually, the amphetamines run out, or you do. Enter the next wave of chemical solutions. Tranquilizers, the sleepy little cousin of speed. The day always starts the same with a spark of energy, a whirl of chores, a flurry of perfectly organized chaos. But somewhere around the third week or the third prescription, the edges begin to blur. The little white pep pills don't pack the punch they used to. Your hands tremble more, your heart thumps louder, and your nerves, once taut as piano wire, start to fray. You begin to feel the crash, headaches, irritability, the creeping dread that there's nothing in the medicine cabinet left to help you sweep up the invisible mess. Doctors notice too. At first, they offer reassurance. Everyone feels overwhelmed sometimes. Then comes a different prescription. Pastel, colored, calming, promising peace instead of pep. Enter tranquilizers. The advertisements call them a vacation in a bottle. The doctor calls them progress. You just call them relief. The transition is slow, almost stealthy. At first, you only take a pill at night to help you relax. Soon you're reaching for it at lunch, then again in the late afternoon whenever the world feels a little too sharp around the edges. The tranquilizers don't deliver the same rush. But that's the point. No more jittery afternoons spent cleaning grout with a toothbrush or alphabetizing canned goods at 3 a.m. Now you drift. The panic softens. The background hum of anxiety fades into something like static. You notice the change in yourself. You move slower. You care a little less about matching the napkins or having the shiniest silverware. The dog can bark all afternoon, and you barely flinch. You sit longer at the kitchen table stirring your coffee, watching the steam rise in lazy swirls. Your husband notices, too. You seem calmer, he says as if he's talking about the weather. You nod, smile, and hide the fact that sometimes you feel too calm, like you're weighing through a dream you can't quite wake up from. The neighborhood adjusts along with you. The Joneses' roses are still redder, but now you don't mind so much. Book club discussions drift from recipes and curtain patterns to gentle jokes about mother's little helper and nighttime vitamins. Nobody mentions the word dependency. Why would they? Tranquilizers are modern, scientific, approved by doctors and neighbors alike. They're not an admission of defeat, just another tool in the ever-expanding arsenal of suburban survival. But there are moments when the emptiness sneaks in. The laughter at the PDA feels hollow. The magazine covers a little more absurd. You think of the days you powered through with a smile and a pill. The restless energy that let you conquer every casserole and dust bunny in sight. Now everything is softer, quieter, more manageable, and somehow less real. Still, you keep going. You take the pills. You host the bake sales. You smile through the fatigue. If speed was about doing everything, tranquilizers are about making sure you don't care too much when all falls apart. It's a trade-off, and one that nearly every housewife in the neighborhood makes sooner or later. In the end, the race for perfection gives way to the slow march of acceptance. The tranquilizers promise sleep, peace, a respite from the endless shoulds. You never quite quit the game, but you play it slower, softer, and with just a bit more forgiveness. And maybe, just maybe, that's what it takes to finally rest. Decades later, the pastel haze of the 1950s looks less like a golden age and more like a cautionary tale about pressure, perfection, and a pharmaceutical solution to problems no one could say out loud. At the time, everything seemed so promising. The new suburbs stretched across the country like fresh notebook paper, orderly, bright, untouched by the messiness of the city. Modern appliances filled every kitchen, chrome, and formica, promising to free women from drudgery. There were television jingles about the good life, and magazines full of smiling families and cakes that never collapsed. To look at the photos, you'd think everyone was living the dream, but behind every smiling portrait was a story you didn't see in the magazines. The exhaustion, the whispered anxiety, the restless energy that hummed beneath every perfect home. There was always another room to clean, another child to wrangle, another rose to keep from burning. Every detail mattered, and every day brought a new opportunity to fall short. When the pressure became too much, there was always a pill to help, a little boost in the morning, a calming dose at night, and a prescription for every problem in between. Women traded stories at the pharmacy and secrets in the checkout line. Some wore their nervous energy like a badge of honor. Others hid their struggles behind perfect lipstick and forced laughter. No one talked about the cost, not just the price of another bottle, but the toll it took to keep up the act. The endless juggling, the insomnia, the sudden crashes, the quiet shame that came with every stumble, and the silent hope that maybe with the right combination of pills and willpower, everything would finally get easier. Looking back now, the cracks are easier to see. The relentless pursuit of the perfect home, the perfect marriage, the perfect family fueled by science, advertising, and the urgent need to keep up was never sustainable. The pills that promised boundless energy delivered insomnia and anxiety. The tranquilizers that promised peace brought their own dull ache of apathy and detachment. The cost was always there, just hidden beneath the surface. Yet, for all its absurdities and excesses, there's something remarkable in how these women coped. They found camaraderie in whispered confessions and covert glances at the pharmacy counter. They managed to build communities, raise children, bake the pies, host the parties, and put on a show of relentless optimism. Beneath the starched aprons and stiff smiles, they supported each other, not always openly, but in 100 small acts of kindness, in the quiet comfort of knowing you weren't alone. Time has softened the sharpest edges of that era. The houses have aged, the lawns are a little patchier, and the old magazines sit faded in thrift shops, but the lessons remain. Perfection is a moving target, and sometimes the cost is far higher than it seems. The suburban dream was sold as a promise of happiness. But real happiness, messy, unpredictable, unfinished, rarely fits in a Tupperware container. Looking back, the women of the 1950s did what they had to do. They made do, made it work, and made history, one day and one pill at a time. Maybe in the end, the hidden cost of perfection wasn't a secret weakness, but proof of strength. Quiet, stubborn, and absolutely real. The salesmen say these new gadgets will save your soul. Well, at least your hands. But the housewife's real religion is praying the washing machine doesn't explode mid-spin and that the vacuum doesn't suck up the dog again. Somehow, with all this technology, your work has doubled and your patience has halved. Step into the 1950s kitchen where every surface gleams with chrome and every appliance promises more free time. The fridge has a special compartment for Jell-O. The toaster boasts 2 slots, and the blender is powerful enough to pulverize concrete, or at least the world's toughest carrots. The centerpiece, though, is always the was-her dryer, a hulking beast of metal, and hope humming in the background like a mechanical hymn. Every homemaker is promised a modern miracle. Ads in magazines claim that new dishwashers and automatic washing machines will set you free. The salesman who delivered your washing machine swore that with just one button, all your laundry wash would disappear. What he didn't mention was the hidden cost, literal and metaphorical. The payments are as endless as the laundry pile. And now you spend entire afternoons deciphering instruction manuals written in what appears to be Esperanto. You don your best house coat and approach the altar of laundry. The washing machine is already grumbling, shaking the entire house on spin cycle and threatening to break free of its earthly restraints. You sort the laundry with the solemnity of a priest, separating whites, colors, and mystery stains. You pour in soap, muttering a silent prayer that the suds won't overflow, and chase the dog through the living room again. The spin cycle begins, and you brace yourself. If the machine surmise across the linoleum, you simply wedge a folded towel beneath it, one of the many modern rituals that weren't covered in Good Housekeeping. Meanwhile, the new vacuum promises effortless cleaning, but weighs as much as a small refrigerator and has a hose with a mind of its own. You recall the time it inhaled your best apron and nearly took out the cat, but you press on, determined to worship at the altar of progress. The dishwasher is next, rumbling and sloshing, threatening to leak unless you stack the plates just so. Each new device arrives with hope and leaves you with another step in your daily liturgy. Of course, there's a catch. The more gadgets you have, the more work you seem to create. Suddenly, it's not enough to have clean clothes. They must be spotless, scented, and ironed within an inch of their lives. The floors are never clean enough. The dishes never quite gleam. And the neighbors are all comparing their latest appliances like trophies. Mrs. Jones just got a stand mixer. You pretend not to care, but you buy the catalog anyway. Despite the promise of freedom, you sometimes long for a good old-fashioned scrub board and a reason to escape to the backyard for a few quiet minutes. At least then nobody expected you to vacuum the curtains. Still, you find moments of gratitude when the dryer doesn't catch fire, when the icebox actually makes ice, when the blender turns fruit into a passable milkshake and not a kitchen explosion. At the end of the day, the appliances hum and clatter, a mechanical choir singing the praises of modern life. You wipe your brow, pour yourself a glass of instant lemonade, and consider lighting a candle in thanks, or at least unplugging the toaster just in case. In the church of modern appliances, salvation is just another rinse cycle away. School sends home a note. Your child needs to build a model volcano by Monday. Luckily, you have access to more household chemicals than most modern labs, plus enough nervous energy to power a small city. If you've ever made papier-mâché while seeing sound, congratulations. You're living the dream. The letter appears on Friday afternoon, crumpled in the bottom of a backpack. Dear parents, please help your child with their science project. Translation: you'll be building the project while your child offers suggestions and occasionally glues their fingers together. This is not your first rodeo. Last year, you engineered a solar system from styrofoam balls and enough glitter to blind the cat for a week. This year, the volcano, you read the instructions and assemble your arsenal. Baking soda, vinegar, food coloring, newspaper, flour paste, and the one essential ingredient, relentless, chemically enhanced enthusiasm. You barely blink before the kitchen is transformed into a laboratory of mayhem. Flour dust clouds the air, Newspaper strips litter the counters, and every mixing bowl you own is commandeered in the name of science. Junior's job is to hold things steady, which he accomplishes by knocking over the baking soda at least twice. With steady hands and a pulse you can almost hear, you mold a papilla me volcano, smoothing lumps, patching craters, and try not to scream when the dog tries to eat the project. Your mind races faster than the egg beater, running through every possible disaster. Will it stand up? Will it erupt? Will you ever get the glue out of the curtains? The kitchen timer ticks, and you realize you're already overdue for your next little helper. One pill later, and you're running on pure 1950s housewife fuel, ready to take this volcano to the next level. Junior contributes creative direction. Can it shoot real fire? What if we add glitter? Can we make it smell like dinosaurs? You do your best, promising nothing but a memorable eruption. The evening blurs into a whirlwind of construction and chaos. By midnight, the volcano is a masterpiece painted brown with ominous red streaks and a hidden chamber for the grand finale. You tidy the kitchen at superhuman speed, only occasionally wondering if anyone else's volcano has architectural blueprints and a backup eruption system. The real show is on Monday morning when you transport the delicate creation to school. Junior clutches it in the back seat, humming with anticipation. In the gymnasium, you size up the competition. There are the usual contenders: Suzz's baking soda geyser, Bobby's working windmill powered by Dad's electric drill, and one unsettlingly professional solar system that suspiciously resembles something from the planetarium gift shop. The tension is palpable. When it's Junior's turn, the gym goes quiet. You set the volcano on the table, pour in the vinegar, and voila, a glorious foaming eruption tinged with just enough food coloring to stun a small mammal. The other parents clap. The teacher beams, and you silently thank science, amphetamines, and your own overdeveloped sense of parental duty. Afterward, you pack up the remains, proud and just a little exhausted. The science project is done. The glue is still drying in the dog's fur, and you survived another suburban trial by fire, or at least by vinegar and baking soda. Back home, you pop another little helper and prepare to face the next project. Possibly a solar-powered rocket, definitely a bake sale, and always a clean kitchen. In the 1950s, a housewife's real advantage is never just elbow grease. It's that special blend of chemical pep and never-ending love. The phone is ringing again. It's your neighbor or your mother or possibly a telemarketer selling more vitamins. Social connection is essential, but it's also another marathon for your already caffeinated brain. Multitasking, you invented it. You're on the phone basting a chicken and organizing next week's charity raffle, all before the second pill kicks in. The party line, a relic of suburban communication, means you're never alone, even when you want to be. Pick up the receiver and you might hear Mrs. Henderson updating her sister on her corns, or Ruth reciting the entire list of items she's misplaced since breakfast. Privacy is a concept reserved for the next century. You learn to whisper, to eavesdrop, to distinguish the click of a curious neighbor from the gentle static of honest connection. Phones in the 1950s aren't just for emergencies. They're the lifeline of social order. The kitchen phone, its coiled cords stretching into every corner, is your headquarters for friendship, crisis management, and suburban reconnaissance. The ringing is constant. It's Janet wanting your potato salad recipe. It's Carol recruiting you for the school play committee. Sometimes it's your own mother launching into a monologue about canning tomatoes, her voice growing faint only when she's sure you're distracted enough to agree to visit next month. But phone calls aren't just for chatter. They're also the hotline for news and neighborhood intelligence. Did you hear about Mrs. Johnson's new curtains? Is Ruth's son really flunking math? Has anyone seen the milkman since Tuesday? The updates fly faster than a Tupperware lid at a party. You keep one ear on the phone and one on the back door, just in case the conversation shifts to you. Meanwhile, your hands are never idle. You're folding laundry, flipping pork chops, writing reminders on the back of old envelopes. You cradle the phone with your shoulder while separating the kids' arguments with hand signals and telepathic threats. It's a ballet of busy work, all performed with the nervous grace of a woman running on housewife rocket fuel. Every call requires attention, judgment, and the delicate skill of extricating yourself before Ruth starts describing her foot ointment in detail. And then there's the gossip, an essential nutrient of suburban life. Everyone pretends not to participate, but everyone is in the game. The party line is a river of rumors, always flowing, sometimes flooding. You listen, contribute, and occasionally wheeze of the latest scandal. No, Carol's new poodle is not actually a rescue. Yes, Janet did feign at the last bake sale, but only after she found out she'd sold store-bought cookies by mistake. The phone itself becomes a prop in your daily drama. You twirl the cord, rehearse pleasantries, and master the art of the polite sign-off. "Oh, I really should get back to the oven" is a universal code for "I can't listen to another minute about Ruth's bunions." But sometimes in the quiet after the click, you admit you're grateful for the noise. The phone line is a thread connecting you to everyone else. The proof that even when you're frantic, you're not alone. Eventually, the ringing subsides and you hang up, brain buzzing and chicken only slightly overcooked. There's a comfort in the chaos, a rhythm to the interruptions. The party line may never rest. But in a world of lists, casseroles, and constant commotion, at least you know someone is always there, waiting, listening, and ready to pick up on the first ring. Nobody tells you that looking perfect at all times is its own Olympic event. Stockings run, petticoats itch, and someone somewhere is judging your lipstick shade. Underneath the elegance, there's a deep existential question. How do you accessorize chronic exhaustion? Step into the 1950s closet, a pastel battleground lined with crinolines, pressed dresses, and more pairs of sensible pumps than any one person could ever wear out. The law of the land is effortless chic. Never mind that it takes an army's worth of effort and enough bobby pins to reconstruct the Brooklyn Bridge. You start each morning with an outfit plan that reads like a military campaign. Iron the dress, coordinate the shoes, select the perfect strand of pearls, and hope your girdle doesn't stage a mutiny by noon. Fashion, in theory, is about expressing yourself. In 1950s suburbia, it's about expressing that you are not in fact coming apart at the seams. Your outfit is armor, hair sprayed into immobility, lipstick in a shade that signals both approachability and quiet dominance, gloves for every outing, and a hat if you want to win extra points from the neighbor who owns binoculars. The only thing more dangerous than a wrinkled skirt is a wrinkled reputation. Plaid is everywhere on skirts, curtains, aprons, even tablecloths. The right plaid signals you know what's fashionable. The wrong one, well, that's the kind of scandal that makes the rounds on the party line. Prints clash, but you wear them anyway. Distracted by the pressing, need to get out the door before the kids decide to redecorate your outfit with grape jelly. Petticoats swish and scratch, a constant reminder that elegance is often indistinguishable from mild discomfort. Then there are the shoes. Sensible but stylish, at least in theory. By dinner time, your feet ache in ways that no Tupperware party can cure. Pumps for shopping, loafers for cleaning, heels for PDA. Each pair carefully selected to send the right message. Though the only person truly impressed is the dog, who now has 3 new chew toys. And let's not even start on the stockings. They snag on the kitchen chair, run at the worst possible moment, and are always in short supply. Hair is another daily production set in rollers overnight, sprayed and pinned until it forms a helmet strong enough to withstand a light breeze or an unexpected visit from the mother-in-law. Hats perch precariously, threatening to fly off at the first sign of emotion. And through it all, you smile, nod, and pretend that everything is as easy as the women in the magazines make it seem. Underneath the layers of fabric, of powder, of effort, There's a longing for comfort, for a day when fashion means pajamas and slippers. You daydream about elastic waistbands, bare feet, and hair that moves. But for now, you press on. The costume must be perfect. The illusion must be maintained. The world must believe that you have it all together, right down to the matching clutch purse. As you peel off the plaid and pearls at the end of another marathon day, you marvel at your own endurance. You made it through, even if your stockings didn't. In the world of 1950s fashion, survival is an art form, and every housewife is a master. Even if nobody ever sees the mismatched socks hidden under her slippers, every magazine recommends a trim figure. But there's a twist. Your exercise routine is less about jumping jacks and more about shaking with nervous energy while rearranging the linen closet for the sixth time. Between amphetamines, low-calorie dinners, and the fear of swimsuit season, the only real workout is trying to keep up with your own heartbeat. Health in the 1950s is all about appearance, not wellness. The magazines are full of pastel-clad women stretching in immaculate living rooms, smiling as they trim their tummies in 5 minutes a day. You flip through pages of absurd devices, vibrating belts, spring-loaded thigh machines, and something called a reducing roller, which looks suspiciously like a torture device for bread dough. Every month, a new article promises a secret shortcut to a swimsuit-ready body. Eat more grapefruit. Swear off potatoes. Sit-ups before sunrise. The advice shifts, but the message is clear. Thin is in, and sweat is optional. You try your best. You roll out the exercise mat, a cheerful patch of rubber that smells faintly of desperation, and attempt a set of calisthenics. The radio offers encouragement, but mostly you end up sprawled on the floor, counting ceiling tiles, and plotting your next snack. Celery if you're being good, a fig Newton if you're cheating. After 10 minutes of stretches, you decide you've earned a rest, and maybe another cup of Sanker. But who really needs a gym when you have a house to run? Each day is an accidental workout, hauling laundry baskets, scrubbing floors, carrying groceries, and running after children who move with the speed and cunning of small raccoons. You climb the stairs so many times that your calves should be carved from marble. You iron for hours, mop for miles, and rearrange furniture with the manic energy of a person who just realized her neighbor's living room looks better on a Wednesday afternoon. Of course, no health kick is complete without calorie counting. You keep a little notebook in your apron pocket, jotting down every bite, and sip as if writing it down will magically make it disappear. Salad for lunch, half a grapefruit for a snack, air pie for dessert. At dinner, you serve your husband heaping portions, and then nibble at a single forkful, pretending you're just not that hungry. All the while, your stomach rumbles loud enough to startle the cat. When hunger threatens your resolve, chemistry comes to the rescue. Those handy little pills from Dr. Lawson curb your appetite and send you zipping through chores with the energy of a caffeinated gazelle. Who needs food when you have synthetic willpower? You lose a pound here and there, gain a compliment at bridge club, and quietly curse the swimsuit hidden in the back of your closet. There's always a new fad, a new promise, a new product. Wheat germ, carrot juice, super vitamin tablets the size of marbles. Each one more optimistic than the last. You buy the magazines, clip the coupons, and pretend that health is just another thing you can purchase at the pharmacy. But deep down, you know the truth. Nobody is really exercising. Nobody is really satisfied, and everybody is just trying to keep up. At the end of the day, you collapse in a bed, heart still racing, mind still counting calories, and hope that tomorrow you'll wake up a little slimmer, a little stronger, or at least a little more forgiving. In the 1950s, the real health kick isn't about fitness. It's about endurance, denial, and the relentless caffeinated amphetamine-fueled pursuit of an impossible ideal. And so, as another day winds down in the spotless, pastel-lit trenches of 1950s suburbia, you find yourself at the edge of your meticulously tucked-in twin bed, hair still set, eyes wide open, and mine marathons that would make an Olympic coach cry. You've cooked, cleaned, ironed, hosted, driven, smiled, and organized enough for 3 lifetimes. And all with a secret chemical boost that nobody wanted to talk about, even while everybody was doing it. Let's take a quiet moment to honor the wild, caffeine-fueled resilience of those mid-century housewives. They survived more than just burnt casseroles and nosy neighbors. They survived the impossible expectations of an era that asked them to be perfect, energetic, calm, and beautiful all before 5 p.m. every single day. They held families, neighborhoods, and PDA meetings together with sheer willpower, a touch of grace, and yes, the occasional pharmaceutical miracle. Tonight, as you settle into your real bed, a bed with memory foam, air conditioning, and the glorious freedom to say no to casserole and multitasking, maybe whisper a quiet thank you. Thank you to the women who endured a decade when perfection was mandatory. Exhaustion was forbidden, and the only thing keeping everyone upright was a little white pill and a lot of stubbornness. Because history isn't just a parade of facts and timelines. It's the sum of millions of quietly heroic, often ridiculous days. It's a reminder that while we may have our own struggles now, at least we don't have to vacuum in pearls or outrun existential dread with nothing but a casserole and some amphetamines. So, close your eyes, take a slow breath, and let yourself drift. The past may have been absurd, but you made it through another day. And tomorrow, mercifully, there's no Jell-O salad waiting for you at dawn. Sleep well, and remember, surviving history is never pretty, but it's always a little bit hilarious. Good night.